While her children are away, Dana Laskowski plans on relaxing.
Her ex-husband has taken her triplets out on a camping trip, so she has the night to herself. It's the first night she's had in a while.
But when she doesn't show up for work the next morning, police are called in. What began as a chance to unwind turns into a nightmare Dana never saw coming.
Whoever did this was strong enough to fracture her windpipe. She was completely overpowered.
To solve the case, investigators must follow the clues to find the killer hiding in plain sight. Puyallup, Washington, August 31st, 2001. A suburb of Tacoma, Washington, about 100 miles from the Canadian border. It's a fairly peaceful community that doesn't see much violent crime.
On this morning, police get a call from a Puyallup resident who says their nanny hasn't shown up for work. The nanny is 36-year-old Dana Laskowski, a recently separated mother of young triplets. Dana's employer says they tried calling her house multiple times, but there's no answer. It's highly unusual for Dana not to show up for work, so they asked the police to go check up on her.
When officers arrive at Dana's residence, there's no answer at the door. So they head around to the back of the house, and they find the back door slightly ajar. They head inside through the kitchen and into the living room, where they find an unresponsive woman lying on the couch.
At first glance, she appears to be sleeping. She's got a blanket over her body and a pillow under her head, but she's not breathing. The woman is Dana Laskowski.
Within minutes, a crime scene team arrives at the house.
Police have been told that Dana has young children, so their first priority is to make sure that those kids are all right. They make a call to Dana's ex-husband, Stan, and determine that the children are with him safely on a camping trip.
Dana Laskowski has recently separated from her husband and moved to Puyallup to start a new life with her 3 kids.
When it came to being a mother, Dana was a natural.
Along with raising her own triplets and working for another family as a nanny, she also found the time to mentor troubled youth and teach children sign language. She was a caregiver through and through.
When police take a closer look, it's clear that she did not die peacefully. She's lying face down, twisted at the hip with her arm behind her. There's bleeding from her nose and her mouth, and bruising on her neck, which is a clear sign of strangulation. The coroner then finds abrasions on both of her knees, indicating that she struggled with her attacker. She was choked with enough force to fracture the cartilage in her windpipe, which means the assailant would have had to be physically powerful.
Police want to know if this was motivated by opportunity, like a burglar, or passion.
They see no signs of forced entry, no upturned furniture. She's fully clothed, no sign of a sexual assault, and there's no DNA nor fingerprints for them to collect. But the method of death was strangulation, which seems personal, possibly improvised in the heat of the moment.
Everything about this crime scene tells police that Dana knew her killer, and she willingly let them into her house.
The investigation into Dana Laskowski's murder heats up when detectives discover that not one, but 3 men are completely obsessed with her. Laskowski had recently separated and relocated to Puyallup, Washington, to start a new life and raise her young children. Now, this 36-year-old mother of triplets has been found dead in her home, the victim of a violent strangulation.
The evidence at the crime scene indicates that Dana likely knew her killer, so investigators begin to look at the people who were closest to her. And they start with her ex-husband, Stan. Dana's ex lives in Moses Lake, about 200 miles from Dana's home. On the night of the murder, he was away camping with their triplets, conveniently safe from harm. But could this be more than just a coincidence?
After the triplets were born, Dana's marriage began to fall apart. After 10 years together, Dana tells Stan she's calling it quits. Stan was upset about the separation, and he was dissatisfied with the custody arrangement. In particular, he didn't want Dana bringing other men around his children.
Police discover Stan has a life insurance policy on Dana. Right away, this puts Stan at the top of the suspect list.
When the triplets are with their father, Dana was known to go out and party. She was a very social person. She loved to dance and have fun.
She was in her mid-30s, but she enjoyed hanging out with younger people.
Dana has a teenage niece named Amanda, who was kicked out of her family home for drug use. Dana is a devoted aunt who let her stay at her house anytime she needed. Amanda has a best friend named Emily Lowenborg, who often comes with her to Dana's house. They enjoy visiting, but sometimes they will ask Dana for money.
The girls hang out with a group of young runaways and drug users at a nearby park. They call themselves the Park Rats.
Dana would sometimes leave a window unlocked, so the girls could come in, do their laundry, shower.
Police look into Dana's other relationships during the months before her death.
After her separation from Stan, Dana settled in a new town with a new job and a new boyfriend. She was dating a man named Mark, who lived in nearby Vancouver, Canada, and worked in the film industry. Dana's friends say he was really committed to Dana, maybe a little too much for her taste.
But investigators discover that he wasn't the only one getting close to the recently single mom.
Dana's employers tell investigators that in the months leading up to her murder, she'd been pursued by a potentially dangerous stalker. Dana had a cable technician over to fix her phone line. They engaged in small talk, and he, of course, had her phone number. Turns out the cable guy wanted to connect with her. All of a sudden, she was getting flowers with no name, anonymous texts, and phone calls.
Dana told her friend she once spotted the cable guy watching her from a car across the street. And one morning after a night of partying, Dana finds a note on her doorstep. It implies that someone had been watching while she partied the night before. Dana is afraid for her safety at this point. Now, she's pretty sure she knows who's been watching her, but he hasn't technically committed any crime.
Investigators look through Dana's phone records, and they see the same incoming number over and over.
The cable guy called her number so often that Dana stopped answering her phone. Meanwhile, all these phone calls and flowers were really making her Canadian boyfriend, Mark, angry. When a call came in one night when he was over, he demanded that Dana give him the number. He told her that he had people who would make it go away. Dana was horrified and told him to leave. Dana was starting to think her boyfriend had a dark side.
Shortly before her death, Mark offered to move to Puyallup so they could be together. Dana had to tell him that she wasn't ready for that level of commitment. Evidently, he didn't take it very well.
Investigators checked Dana's phone records and find that she had spoken to her boyfriend just before the murder.
For investigators, it seems that every step forward in this case uncovers a new potential suspect. Dana Laskowski had a magnetic personality, and it attracted all kinds of people who wanted her attention. Any one of them could be a suspect in her murder.
And police are about to find a new lead in the case, one that involves a 250-pound man with a long rap sheet and a history of violence.
Now there's going to be another 10 ads.
There's no shortage of potential suspects in the murder case of Dana Laskowski, a 36-year-old mother who was found strangled to death in her home near Tacoma, Washington.
At the time of her death, Dana was managing a rocky relationship with her ex-husband Stan, her possessive boyfriend Mark, her niece's risky behavior, and she was being tormented by a creepy stalker.
Investigators have to start eliminating potential suspects, and on the top of their list is Dana's cable guy.
Investigators learn the man's name is Earl Baxter. When they show up at his doorstep, he refuses to let them in. But they have something he can't refuse: a search warrant.
They show him how his number is all over Dana's phone records, and Earl becomes agitated. So they take him down to the station for further questioning. There, he admits to knowing where Dana lived, but he insists he was nowhere near the residence on the night she was killed. He says he was home with friends watching a movie.
Earl's alibi checks out. The search of his residence and his vehicle doesn't turn up anything incriminating. There's nothing that connects him to the murder, so there's nothing to do but move on to the next suspect.
Investigators next turn to Dana's Canadian boyfriend Mark, who lives just on the other side of the U.S. border.
Investigators head up to Vancouver to speak with Mark. When they talk to him, he seems genuinely broken up about Dana's murder.
On the night of the crime, he says he was trying to reach Dana by phone and even tried driving down from Vancouver. But he was stopped at the U.S. border because of an outstanding traffic warrant.
Investigators trace his phone records and determine that his calls to Dana all originated in Canada. So he wasn't even in the country.
Next up on the list of suspects is Dana's jealous ex-husband, Stan.
During the interview at the station, Stan tries to cry, but there are no tears, no sign of genuine emotion. Then officers notice fresh scrapes on Stan's elbows and knees, similar to the rug burns found on Dana's body. They ask him what happened, and he said he skinned them playing softball. Dana's ex was in the woods when she died, but his campsite wasn't so far from Dana's that he couldn't have driven to her house in the middle of the night and then returned to the campsite before anyone woke up.
Still, Stan denies everything. And with no evidence, investigators have no choice but to let him go.
Finally, detectives turn their attention to Dana's niece, Amanda, and her fellow runaways.
Amanda seems cooperative at first. She gives investigators the names of some male park rats who had met Dana and who might be physically powerful enough to have committed the crime. One of the rats is a 250-pound drug dealer with a long rap sheet and a history of violence. Amanda claims that this dealer attacked her once before and has a hot temper. Plus, he's strong enough to hurt anyone who gets in his way.
While tracking down the drug dealer, police interview one of his friends who is currently in police custody.
This young man doesn't know where his buddy is, but he's heard all about the murder of Dana Laskowski, and he claims it's no secret who killed her. It wasn't his friend. The killer wasn't even male. It's Amanda's best friend, Emily Lowenborg. Dana's niece Amanda and Emily Lowenborg both dance at a local strip club, and they spend their earnings on cocaine and methamphetamine. At 5'2", Emily doesn't look like much of a threat, but things aren't always as they seem. In school, Emily was a championship weightlifter and known for her freakish strength. Her nickname is the Mutant. Emily would arm wrestle the male park rats in order to intimidate the other girls in the group. She was known for wrestling and pinning larger boys with a high-skill move where she'd wrench the arm around the back and then flip into a chokehold.
It's the exact position Dana was found on the couch.
Investigators talked to Emily's friends and fellow park rats, and they all say the same thing. Emily Lowenborg bragged about choking Dana Laskowski to death.
Police discover Emily Lowenborg has a record with multiple charges for petty crimes and drug possession.
So on March 13th, 2003, investigators bring Emily Lowenborg in for questioning. She denies having anything to do with Dana Laskowski's death. They play an audio recording of her friend's testimony, saying Emily openly bragged about the murder. Emily flies into a rage, accusing them all of being liars.
Emily Lowenborg won't crack, but investigators are confident that she was at Dana's home that night, and she likely wasn't alone.
Amanda is brought to the station and questioned again. At first, she's uncooperative, but eventually she gives in under questioning and admits that she witnessed Emily Lowenborg strangle her Aunt Dana to death.
Finally, 18 months after Dana Laskowski was found dead in her home, Emily Lowenborg is arrested for her murder. When Lowenborg won't cooperate, police get a surprise break when they seize her diary and find a rather incriminating entry written in her own hand.
Get a dog.
Marshall's.
Investigators have arrested an unlikely suspect in the murder of 36-year-old mother Dana Laskowski. Her niece's best friend, Emily Lowenborg.
Lowenborg was 17 at the time of the murder, but the courts decide to try her as an adult because of the violent nature of the crime. With Lowenborg in custody, police search her residence for evidence, and they find her diary.
Written in the diary is a bucket list of things she wanted to do before she died. Most of them sound like the typical things a teenager would want to do: own a house someday, go to Italy or Amsterdam, buy a miniature horse. But number 9 is chilling. It says, kill someone and get away with it. And then they find what amounts to a confession of guilt, a journal entry written in her own hand that says, I could kill Amanda and strangle her just like her aunt.
Police now need to find a way to make their murder charges stick. And they see Amanda as their star material witness.
In return for her cooperation, investigators promise not to lay charges against Amanda. So she tells them what happened on the night of August 31st, 2001.
Lowenborg and Amanda show up at Dana's house. It's late, and they're both high on cocaine. They want to borrow some money, but Dana refuses. When Lowenborg becomes rude and aggressive, Dana tells them both to leave.
Lowenborg has always been jealous of Dana's connection to Amanda. So when Dana puts a hand on her shoulder, this underlying hatred causes an explosive reaction in the teenager.
Lowenborg grabs Dana and uses her strength and wrestling skills to put her in a chokehold, and she squeezes so hard that she crushes her windpipe. Amanda claims that she took no part in the murder, but clearly she never tried to stop it either.
Dana would have done anything for Amanda, but when Dana needed her more than she's ever needed anyone, Amanda could only look away and close her eyes.
The circumstantial case against Lowenborg is strong, but without concrete evidence, nothing is certain at trial. So prosecutors offer to downgrade the murder charge to first-degree manslaughter. It's the difference between a premeditated intentional killing and an accidental but reckless killing. But Emily Lowenborg has one final twist in store. Lowenborg enters what's called an Alford plea. She concedes that the evidence against her likely would lead to a conviction. She benefits from a more lenient sentence without ever admitting guilt.
Lowenborg is sentenced to just 6.5 years, with credit for time served. She is released in 2008 and is now married and living under her married name.
Dana was a friend to these girls. She cared for them when it seemed like nobody else would. And how did they repay her kindness? By demanding more. And when she refused, they killed her for it.
Actually said he did it, but whatever.